Welcome to Divine Balance and Friends. My name is Serena Laidlaw, and I'm here today to introduce you to the founder of Divine Balance and Friends, Maggie Palmer, healer extraordinaire. This is the first interview that we're going to put up on our new YouTube channel, one of which hopefully will be one of many. But today I have the pleasure of chatting with Maggie and hearing her story. So, Maggie, perhaps you'd like to tell us how it all started for you and what led you to do the work you're doing today.
Okay, thank you, Serena. So if I go back to childhood and just my earliest memories of me, I was, I think, always keen to help, and I knew that. I knew I had this feeling that what one later would perhaps will call a sense of vocation, that I was here to be of help or of service. And I was raised Catholic by a very staunch Catholic mother. And as soon as I knew that there was such a thing as missionary nuns, I thought, well, that sounds great to go and travel the world and teach people about what was then my faith. But fundamentally to help people. Um, I'm no longer Catholic. I left that behind when I was probably about 12, and I had big questions about life that I would go to my mum or the priest or whoever else or at school I was dealing with and say, well, I can't seem to answer this question through the lens of this faith, and I wasn't getting answers that satisfied me, and I think I got a bit jaded, but I never lost that feeling of being connected to something bigger and having a sense of faith. Um, and then I guess fast forward to when I was about 13, 14, and I became a bit of an agony aunt for everybody at school. So I was probably the last to have a boyfriend of all of my peers, but when others were getting into relationships and having their first kiss and all that sort of stuff, they'd come to me for advice. And even some of my older family members would come to me for relationship advice before I'd even had a relationship. I think because I was always watching and learning and
Mm.
fascinated by relationships with all the Libra in my chart. Um, so I've always been that kind of character anyway. And then the kind of person who'd be sitting on the bus and there'd be an empty seat next to me and someone will come and sit next to me and just unpack their life story in front of me, a complete stranger. And so I guess I have that kind of field of somebody who cares and wants to
Mm.
listen and will hold space for somebody, to use commonly used terms of describing how someone who's a bit, inclined towards healing might be with people. Um, And my dad was really into Carl Jung and metaphysics and had done a lot of study around that. Had he not had 7 children to feed and had to be an insurance sales manager, he probably
Mm.
would have been an excellent psychotherapist. So I knew he was that way inclined as well. And at 15, GCSE options came up, so we had to choose what we wanted to study for GCSE, and they suddenly introduced psychology as a field of study. So I went to my dad and said, do you think I should take this? Because I want to help people. And he, knowing me and knowing I wasn't particularly inclined towards maths and figures and numbers, said that in his observation and experience, the study of psychology through traditional means is all statistics, numbers. He knew that that would starve the joy out of trying to help people from me, and gave me a piece of advice that I didn't realize I was going to follow until much later. Hopefully we'll circle back round to that. But he said to me at the time, I'd advise you not to do that. I would advise you study what you're drawn to study in your own way, live your own life, have
Mm.
valuable life experience,
Mm.
and then when you're around 40, set
Yeah.
up a practice doing it your way and help people the way that you meant to, the way that you
Very
want to.
sensible, wasn't he? Very sensible. I mean, it sounds as if your father was very sympathetic to your interests. And you valued his advice at that time, did you?
Well, I did. I'm fond of all of my family, but he was the one who was probably most akin to me in terms of his interests, and I really did admire him and took that advice on board. I didn't necessarily think, right, I'm going to go off and do this, that, and the other, and when I'm 40, I'll set up a practice. But I just went and focused on other subjects like art,
Mm.
languages,
Mm.
um, and then, got a bit lost actually, because,
Mm.
well, just one other thing to mention about my dad, actually, before I move on to the next bit. When I was around 16, he presented me with a little pouch and pressed it into my hand and very quietly said to me, and he was quite eccentric, Gemini for Gemini. He said, it's important. and said it in this surreptitious way so that nobody else would be able to hear, and then scurried off. And I opened up this little leather pouch, and there was a tiny little Gemini pendant inside it.
Mm.
And it was as though he was trying to give me a clue that I'd pick up later because he knew I had an interest in astrology. He did too, but nobody else in the family did, particularly. And it was his way of saying, keep pursuing that because this is going to be an area of study that's going to be useful for you. I wish now I could ask him what he really meant by that, but I can't. But looking back, it was sweet. And then 2 years later, he went for heart surgery, which was supposed to be routine, and he passed away on the operating table, which wasn't expected.
Mm.
I've talked about that in some of my other videos, so some people watching this might have heard this story before, but it was a huge shock. And I guess now I
Awful.
think of it kind of as an initiation into the path of healing for me. Yeah, so it was a big change for me
Mm.
at that
Mm.
point.
Awful. So what sort of happened then? Did you go sort of downhill in any way, losing your father? I mean, it sounds as if he was a very important figure in your life. How did you go forward after that?
It it was a tremendous shock. I think I immediately went into the mode of I have to look after my mother and my little brother. He was
Yeah.
12.
Mm.
And I looked at him and thought, you don't get to have this extra 6 years I had with him. Mum was in crisis, obviously just lost her husband. And I
Lots of children,
lots of
lots of
children,
children to,
exactly,
yeah,
to
gosh, it
think
must have
about.
been
And
very
I think I
difficult.
just lost my way
Yeah.
completely. I ended up overeating all sorts of junk food to numb out from the emotion of the
Yeah.
loss. I
Yeah.
was drinking quite heavily back then. I became an overnight chain smoker practically
Mm.
from nothing. So,
Yeah.
there was definitely grief there. And probably about a year later, I took a year out after doing my A levels. I just completed my A levels when Dad passed away. And I took a year out just to have some time really to think about
Mm.
what to do next. And then decided to do an art foundation course. And I almost failed that course because I spent the second term just utterly depressed, unable to go in.
Mm.
Fortunately, my tutor was very kind and said, at the beginning of the third term, I will let you stay if you do last term's work and this term's work all in one go, which I managed to do.
Well
But,
done. Well
you know,
done.
I was really struggling at that point, and I was
Mm.
going through what I would describe as suicidal ideation, where I wasn't seriously thinking about taking my life, but I would look at the trains coming through. Trigger warning for anybody who experiences any of this. Trains coming through the tunnel and think it would be so easy to go and drop myself in front of that, and then I'd be with him, and I wouldn't have to feel this pain anymore. And because that was happening, I took myself to my GP, because of course that's what you do, isn't it, when there's something wrong?
Yeah. Well, we
Uh,
used to.
we used to. Um, and I told her she wasn't a particularly sympathetic lady. I told her I was having a hard time. She asked me some very strange questions, which I didn't know how to answer, like, what color is life for you? And I would say, oh, what am I supposed to say to that? Blue? Because it's blue, isn't it, when you're sad?
Mm.
And she'd say, no, it's black. And she was telling me what to think. And then I said, I'd really like to talk to somebody. Could you line me up with a psychotherapist, maybe, if there's someone like that? And she said, no, the wait list is too long, and wrote me two prescriptions for antidepressants, which I'd said I didn't want. No disrespect to anyone who takes them, but I was certain that that wasn't what I needed. Shoved them at me and insisted I take them. And I took them outside and tore them up and put them in the bin outside the clinic, and then made a decision that I needed to look elsewhere for help because I wasn't going to get the help I needed there.
Yeah. Mm. So, you were telling me after this you kind of set up a sort of scholarship.
Yeah, so shortly after that, I met a woman who became one of my first big spiritual teachers. I was in a clothes shop and we were having a chat. She said, are you a Gemini? And I said, how did you know that? And she said, well, because I can tell. And she said, I can tell you've got spiritual psychic gifts, abilities. Do you want to develop those? Because I run a class around the corner. You could come along to that once a week. And I said, okay. And then I had some wonderful experiences. My first experiences of hands-on healing, of giving hands-on healing, just basic, generic, no name to any of it, but just pop your hands on someone and
Yep.
direct light to them. Um, had my first experience of Reiki there. Had someone who'd never met me give me a treatment, and I curled up into a ball and wept quietly. He couldn't see any of that. It was in a dark room, and he said afterwards, "You're carrying a huge burden of grief because you're looking after other people instead of dealing with your own pain,
Mm.
and you've got a dairy intolerance." Which I didn't know at the time, but that turned out to be true as well. I thought,
Mm.
how could you know that just from touching somebody?
Well,
And
amazing.
and what a
Mm.
gift to have someone just hold you so that you can unpack your emotions safely, to feel comfortable enough to let go, which I did. So I loved it and I played with that and I gave lots of healing sessions to friends and family. I started playing with tarot cards because I'd received some from Dad when his all his belongings were being divvied out to my siblings and me, and found that was a great way of exploring me and who I am and trying to understand myself better, like blueprint work, a bit like astrology. Um, and loved, lightly studying astrology. I definitely haven't, until recently working with you, gone into real depth about that and studied it formally, but found that all of these different things help me to understand myself better and help me to support other people to understand themselves better.
Mm.
And found that I was getting answers through these non-mainstream tools and systems that
Mhm.
I definitely wasn't getting, both physically and emotionally, from the mainstream. Possibly because I was overeating junk and drinking and not taking care of myself, I ended up with terrible gut issues and was going to the Royal Free for tests. And all they came up with at the end was, you've got IBS, but I was rapidly losing weight and I had all sorts of problems. Later on, I realized, of course, it was what I was eating, but nobody ever asks you
Mm.
that, do they? So there have been two strands for me of my health. One of the physical, which was almost autoimmune like issues that I had
Mm.
that nobody in the mainstream was helping me with. And I can talk about that another time, otherwise I'll go on a tangent. And the other
Yeah.
was the mental and emotional, which I didn't have any support for other than here's
Yeah.
some antidepressants.
Yeah.
And here I found that healing and working with tarot, working with astrology, working with gifted clairvoyant people that I've met along my path, and different non-mainstream healing modalities were what actually helped me to understand myself, know myself, and find that I had a particular liking for working that way myself. And then I went into a kind of a black hole of depression throughout my 20s where I lost touch with all of that, got into a bunch of soul-sucking jobs, soul-sucking relationships, got lost in not taking care of myself, and had another crisis point at about 27 where I was made redundant twice in 1 year and was going to sign on the next day and was dreading it because that's not a fun process and I didn't want to be on benefits. Not again, no disrespect to anyone who does, but
Mm.
I didn't want to stay in that system for too long.
And were you still living at home at that stage?
No, I was at that point living with some friends.
So
But
you had to
then,
find a rent and what have you. So you had to go and apply for one of these soul-sucking jobs, didn't you? Probably.
yes,
Yeah.
so that's what
Yeah.
I had been doing all
Mm.
along,
Yeah.
ignoring the fact that there was this calling, living in North London, high
Yeah.
outgoings,
Expensive.
poor
Yeah.
income, getting myself
Yeah.
in debt.
Yeah. Eating
And
eating cheap junk food.
yeah, yeah, just to
Yeah.
survive.
Yeah.
But also numbing with that, I'm not going to pretend I wasn't using that as a self-medication tool as well. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it was one night where I just got to a point of despair and actually offered up a prayer at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, "Look, can you just show me what I'm meant to be doing here? Because I've completely lost my way and I'm not enjoying this." Um,
Mm.
went to
Oh.
bed, went to sleep, woke up the next day, put on This Morning as I was getting ready to go to the job centre, and there was a woman being interviewed who was a healer and had set up a retreat in England after being a PA. And, I won't tell her story, otherwise I'll give away who we're talking about here. But I understood as I was watching her, it was one of those kind of light bulb moments of you asked us to show you what you were meant to be doing, and this person is doing what you wanted to do. And we're reminding you, when I was 21, I'd had this dream of having a retreat and setting up a network of practitioners, teachers, wisdom keepers who could offer that non-mainstream help to people who weren't getting their needs met that way.
Mm.
And I've forgotten all about it, got lost. Then this woman is living my dream and I'm being shown it. And I think, oh, I must go and work with her then. That must be the answer. So I wrote to her and she was going to offer me a scholarship to go and live there and train and help work on the
So
retreat.
where's there?
Probably oughtn't to say that because I don't want to give
Oh,
away. No, no, it's a fair question to ask, but I want to be careful not to give away anything too much
not
about that.
not in the place you were living in North
Not
London
in a place
anyway.
like, no,
You'd
no.
moved on from you were moving
Yeah,
on
a
from
couple of
there.
hundred miles away from where I was living. And
Okie dokie.
I was
Yeah.
ready to just go and pack everything up and go and take a chance and go and work there. And I had a bike accident,
Mm.
which was quite horrific, smashed my teeth. And it was a no, you're not going there. And again, just, oh, what am I meant to be doing then? Is that a redirection? Go to sign on again, and I have someone say, oh, we do free courses for people who are unemployed. Would you like to do any of those whilst you're
Mm.
looking for work? I thought, well, all right, something to do. And one of
Yeah.
them was called Improve Your Lifestyle. And I found out when I joined that it was actually a wonderful woman who became my Reiki teacher, who was teaching Reiki 1, teaching Reiki 2. I got
Who
to learn,
knew?
I got to learn it for nothing over a course of two
Gosh.
long terms where you went in real depth into it. And I rediscovered again my passion for healing for all such subjects really, because she covered a whole range of subjects. An Indian lady who'd had a different form of training to most of the people I've met in the West who learned
Mm.
Reiki,
Yeah, yeah,
came through a different lineage.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and yeah, a year later, I took the third level training with her, the master level, and became a teacher,
Mhm.
and then started to do it properly, but still on the side. So doing full-time secretarial
Yeah,
PA work,
like
but
so many of us have to do.
cloak and dagger out of the
Mm.
closet,
Yeah.
because I didn't, I don't know, I didn't believe in myself enough or in it enough, I suppose, to step forward and
Mm.
fully back myself and do it.
No, and also, you tell people in the mainstream offices, and they just think you're two sandwiches short of a picnic,
Yeah,
don't
absolutely.
they? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Which is why it's lovely to be around people who understand.
But at that time, you were keeping it quiet and doing the teaching and practicing of Reiki in the evenings.
Yeah, and weekends.
How long did that all go on for? What was sort of the next
So
move?
yeah, so I was probably about 28 when I qualified level three, and then I found a gig in a local natural healthcare food shop on the high street where they had a couple of therapy rooms at the back, and I was doing Sunday, Saturday work there occasionally, and then found some work through a garden centre that had a crystal shop attached to it. And I walked in there one day and heard the guy behind the desk talking to somebody and saying, "Of course, we don't have a Reiki teacher." And I went, "I'm sorry, I wasn't earwigging or anything, but I've just qualified and I'm terrified to do it. But do you think perhaps I could fill that role and teach?" He said, "Yeah, brilliant." And it was just instant, one of those doors opening without much effort.
Wow.
And started doing workshop training there, which I loved, and loved seeing people kind of coming alive and discovering this gift, and seeing the way that would change people's lives. Because it, as you know, it does when you start working with these energies. You do everything in your life seems to change to correspond with
Yeah.
the healing you're going through while you're working with these energies. So loved it, and probably did that till I was about 33. Where was I? What age was I when I met Nick? Yeah, we're still doing that cloak and dagger, but on the side. And then, um,
Are you going to tell everybody who Nick is?
yeah, I was just thinking, well, how far do I go down that rabbit hole? But yeah, I met my now husband,
Yeah.
long-suffering dear partner Nick. Gosh, nearly 15 years ago. It'll be in November 2011.
Okay, dokes.
Um, and that's a story in itself. I won't go into that, but that felt very much fated in the way that we met. Um, and I fell very much in love. And I was never the kind of person, I was never the kind of girl who dreamt about weddings or any of that kind of nonsense. But suddenly, within 2 weeks of meeting him, I was imagining our wedding and thinking, I've gone completely cuckoo. He's 10 years younger. He lived 100 miles away. Why would this work? All of my friends at the time were saying, "You're insane. I don't know what you
Yeah.
think." My family thought I was bonkers. The only person I
Mm.
think who saw the potential was my mum, right from the get-go. And she met him and she said, actually, he's the older one out of the two of you. He's much more mature than you are. And she said he's the love of your life because she'd met some of the other frogs I'd kissed along the way. No disrespect if any of them are watching, but they weren't quite the right fit. And she'd
No.
known that, always
Yeah.
known that with the mother's
Yeah.
intuition.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she really gave her blessing. She loved him actually. And after I think we were courting for probably about almost a year, and he invited me to come and live with him in Wiltshire. And I said, okay. And I upped and left everything. 25 years of life in North London. I just left it behind to go and live with him.
It's a big, big move, really, from London to very, very, very country type, well, rural type of county, isn't it?
And we were living in this little sticks village in the middle of nowhere that
Yeah.
the Vicar of
Wow.
Dibley is actually based on, apparently, because Dawn French and Lenny Henry used
Okay.
to live there. So a
Oh, how
little village in
interesting.
the
Yeah.
back end of nowhere in the middle of a farm
Yes.
in a
So
16th century
sublime
cottage.
to the ridiculous then.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that a bit of a culture shock for you?
No, it was like, why haven't I done this sooner?
Oh,
All
oh,
this
good.
green everywhere. I couldn't
Mm.
believe that I'd survived London for so long, because I suddenly felt as though someone had taken my nervous system and just unwound it. I felt safe and happy
Oh,
and
lovely.
felt like I'd landed where I was meant to be. So it was
Gosh.
wonderful. Yeah, although 3 months after moving, my mum fell ill and got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So it was like, well, I've just moved all this. Used to live about a 10-minute walk from her. And suddenly I've moved, and 3 months later, she's been diagnosed with cancer. And had I been there, I would have moved in, I would have taken care of her. My little brother took that role on and became her living carer, and I would go back and visit every 2 weeks. I would give her Reiki. She actually loved it.
Oh, good.
She grew to love it enough to ask for it, actually, which was wonderful. And yeah, that's another big story, her journey. She was incredible with the way she dealt with that. She was given 2 weeks to live and was 18 months later still fighting
Yeah,
and
good for her.
determined, as an Aries, determined to see everything she wanted to see and do everything she wanted to do and
Mm,
really impressing the doctors. Um, and actually, that was one of those times where I saw that mainstream medicine had its place and was doing wonders to keep her going. Um,
mm.
so, I don't have a one-sided view of these things at all. But then she passed away when I was 30, just about to turn 36, and it was like another initiation again, another shocking turning point for me where I looked at what I was doing and I thought, well, I know this is my path. Why am I not doing it properly? Is there something else I need to learn? And I went and found some wonderful teachers in Glastonbury to teach me deeper shamanic healing, energy healing techniques, and I did a 2 year immersive training in that and learned 5 beautiful methods that I still work with today, and then qualified almost 10 years ago now and set up a practice and bit the bullet and went part-time in one of the soul-sucking jobs that I was still doing. No disrespect to those kinds of jobs either. And
They
set up
paid the waitress bill or the Asda bill or
absolutely, yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, it's all necessary, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that job also taught me a lot. But yeah, I went part-time there and set up a practice part-time in Salisbury, working with a massage therapist friend who had been one of my case studies when I was doing the shamanic training. Loved
Okay.
the sound healing that I do and said, why don't you I'll do people's bodies and I'll send them to you to do all the other stuff. And we'll share this beautiful space in the middle of Salisbury. So we worked together for 3 years and I built up a decent practice and I was working hard, running between two jobs, between two parts of Wiltshire, really. Lots of travel, lots of running around, lots of effort, 6 day week. And then 2020 happened.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
So yeah, lockdowns meant that I lost that practice overnight, effectively.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you literally lost it completely, did you?
well, you weren't allowed to see anybody, were you?
No, I
So
know. I mean, something similar happened to me, but
yeah, so those of us
yeah,
in our line of
yeah.
work, that
Mm,
you couldn't carry on, could you?
no, no.
Unless it was considered urgent work,
Yeah.
which, energy healing isn't for the most part, even though I think it is.
But
Uh,
not according to
no, mainstream standards.
yeah.
So, we had just bought this house that I'm in at the moment. It was our first bought home together. 3 days
Yeah.
before lockdown, we moved into what my husband describes as, excuse my language, a shithole, because it was. And there were bags and boxes everywhere and absolute chaos. And suddenly I've just lost my practice, which I've been working for 3 years. And then I get furloughed from the other job where they say, well, for
Oh,
now, you're going to have to just do nothing. And it was a real crisis time for me. And actually, we had a hard time in our marriage around about then because I just felt
yeah.
like it felt like a dark night of the soul. And it felt
Yeah.
like all that effort had been for nothing and God had abandoned me and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But fast forward towards the end of the year, and actually, Nick had looked at this room and said, and he's a builder, he'd looked at this room and said, well, we're not going to use this room as our living room. Let's turn that into your practice. And then you don't have to pay overheads to rent somewhere else from somebody else, and you don't have to do all that traveling and all spending all that money, all the travel.
Mm,
Um, so we did. We set this room up. He helped me. It all, took much longer than expected, but was happy with the results. It's lovely.
yeah.
And started 2021 very optimistic, ready to start seeing people from home.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then 2021, early on, I had some memories of childhood trauma surface that had been deeply buried. I won't go into that at all now, but I did go into a kind of crisis there as well. At
What
that
do you
point,
think prompted that, though, without going into the whys and wherefores? What do you think suddenly prompted that?
so I've thought about that a lot. Now, I've looked into the astrology of it. That's one thing. And there's no question that there were transits that were prompting an emergence of buried memories at that time because they're
Okay.
in black and
Yeah.
white.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's, divine timing, I guess I would put it down to, but
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
in in taking it to kind of inquiry with my inner guidance and the tools that I use to try to understand why things happened for me, the message I got was you're now ready because you've got roots down, you've got stability, you've got a husband you trust, you've gone through
Mm.
the kind of early difficult stages of your relationship and you've got this stability and you've just bought a house. So you've got that kind of at least illusion of stability and
Yeah.
security.
Yeah.
And now's the time for you to see this, unpack it and deal with it. Um, but yeah, there's
Okay.
never feels like a good time to do any of that, does it? And
Well, it sounds as if at this stage, after all the upheaval, you'd sort of eventually landed on your feet. Was that so?
Well, yeah, so we're still in lockdowns in 2021. I'm looking for help because I'm going through this crisis. I find some help and then realize I need more, and then I come across David Ian Rogers and his work, and
Oh,
he
that's right.
he calls himself the Heoka, and he works with a trauma healing practice. And I'd seen him demonstrate it on a YouTube channel that I used to watch, and I thought there's something there. I can see that's working, even though it looked bonkers.
Mm,
I thought, well, I can see it's just worked on the woman he's demonstrated it on. So I reached out to him, and because he knew I was a practitioner, he fast tracked me, even though he had a huge waiting list. Um, and we worked through, it sounds flippant, but the trauma of a lifetime, everything that I still felt I was carrying. We worked through it very quickly with this beautiful technique of his that made me laugh to the point I had mascara stains running down my face. And he said to me at the end of it, I think that you would be great to do this. So I want to give you my technique, and you don't have to mention me, but just go off and do it. Go and help people. There's a lot of people who need this help, and gave me his method. And so once
right.
I'd once I'd healed myself a little bit more, I started working with that method as well and added that to the repertoire and have been doing that for now nearly 5 years. Love it. Love the results for myself.
Yeah.
Changed me overnight, honestly,
Mm,
and made me look at all the habits and behaviors that I thought were just who I was, like staying up till a stupid time in the morning and eating rubbish and overcompensating and people pleasing and overextending myself, all that stuff that I used to do. I thought, well, that's
mm,
just Maggie. And then it
mm,
turned out actually all of that had its basis or its roots in some kind of trauma or wounding. And once I'd released the
mm.
attendant attached charge of that through this method, I was able to change how I did things and actually look after myself properly and help other people. So yeah, that's the
So,
journey of the kind of healing side of things anyway.
so how did this finding here lead on to the community work that you're now doing?
So I through contacts actually that I knew um who also knew David, I found out about a natural health practitioner who was doing a particular type of health protocol that appealed to me.
Mm,
So I started doing it, joined the protocol, joined the membership. It was a private membership. Found that I was instated as somebody who was sort of helping. I was doing voluntary work essentially there, running some calls and events and doing
mm,
customer service work and stuff like that.
yeah.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, really believed in it. Um, and that went in a different direction. And a couple of people, I met a lot of people there, including yourself. So a lot of people who felt like soul family
Mm.
started to gather together in that space. And then I moved on to another project, and that also, in the long run, didn't work out so well, but it continued to build on what little community was started then. And I continue to
I,
build on.
I have
Sorry,
I
please.
have to interject here to say
Yeah,
that neither of those situations were any fault of your own.
thank you.
Yeah.
It's better if someone else says it, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because
yeah,
you might think, well, why is she jumping from one thing to
yeah.
another? But the circumstances were
What a
thus
flippity gibbet. Yeah,
that she had to move on, but no fault of your own.
thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Well, it's the
Um,
truth.
Yeah, and of course I met you there, and you and I had I was helping you on board, and we ended up having a 3 hour absolute riot of a call with each other, and just hitting it off like this, and I just felt a sense of familiarity with you, and felt what a great connection. Yeah, so you and I developed a friendship, but we continued together to work together in that next project to run events and calls. Other people gathered. It wasn't a massive thing, but there was a lovely, cute,
Yeah, it's
lively, bubbly community
brewing,
coming together
wasn't it?
there.
It's
Yeah.
brewing. Yeah,
And that came to an end in October last year because various factors just weren't working.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but we kept holding it together and just we had a little Telegram group and we had a lot of little Zoom events going and they carried on. And people still continued to show an interest in gathering and showing up. And then, of course, our lovely friend Graham, who was going to take the project forward with me,
Hmm.
suddenly fell ill in January of this year, and by April in this year had passed away from cancer. And that made me question again, am I being shown that I shouldn't be doing this? Is this another redirect, or do I carry on? And here we are, gosh, 3 months later, nearly 4 months later, is it? Um,
Yeah.
we're sort of relaunching, repackaged ourselves as Divine Balance and Friends, and we now have a proper structure with a membership fee attached to it so that I can cover the cost of my time that I put into this. And we're going to be building on the events and calls that we run and hopefully reaching those that need the support that we've all had from it because the community aspect of it's been really, really helpful for me, and I see it being helpful to other people.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And how do you see Divine Balance and Friends uh, running, if you like? How could you sell it to somebody if they'd like to join?
Good question. So I think it's for people like ourselves who are looking for somewhere where they can gather with like-minded people, where they can talk about the kinds of subjects that we find interesting. Um, People who are perhaps attracted to the esoteric side of things, who know that there's a deeper aspect to life that perhaps their training or their life experience hasn't shown them yet, who want some guidance when it comes to looking at the kind of what I would call blueprint work, which is working with systems and tools to understand yourself better and to know yourself better, such as astrology, which Serena is a wonderful astrology teacher, um, and does beautiful chart readings. But also to get the non-mainstream help for physical health and non-physical health, that perhaps the mainstream efforts and provisions haven't solved in the same way
Mm,
they didn't for me. So yeah, really just to come and network with like-minded people and explore the possibilities of what's available out there to improve your health and well-being. And if anyone's out there who has something to offer, a service, whether that's as a healer or a teacher or a practitioner or a wisdom keeper or somebody who's just a creative, not just, but who
mm,
has something beautiful to offer, like music or art that they produce or create or sustainable clothing or whatever, so anything that someone has to offer that's aimed at improving our quality of living and working in harmony with the natural world and in natural processes would be welcome to come and join us and see if they're a fit to become one of the contributors of our group and
mm.
join in with some of our events as a contributor and showcase their work. So there's lots of opportunity really for people to
Yeah.
learn and heal and grow together and find community.
Well, thank you for explaining that. So I think kind of to finish off, you wanted to perhaps pose three questions to other people that you're going to interview next time. um, and I'm going to ask those of you now. So
Yeah.
we might have covered, or you might have covered some of it. So the first question is, can you share how alternative slash non-mainstream therapy has helped you in your health and wellness process? I mean, you've probably covered
I
a
think I
fair
probably
bit of
have
that.
answered that one, haven't I?
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I won't
Yeah.
add to what I've already said because I think that
Yeah.
one's quite obvious, but thank you for asking. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, not at all. How has community support impacted on your consistency in maintaining your health and wellness aims? Because we've got a light club, haven't we?
We
That,
have, yeah.
yeah,
So
where we have
you,
to sort of fess up.
yeah, yeah. So I had run an accountability call, which was called Keep Me Honest Club in the last project that I was in, and that did well, and that became
Mm,
the Thrive Club, which was really about people gathering together with any goal, any personal goal they had, whether that was, I want to write a book or I want to lose some weight or I want to get better at taking care of myself, grounding, whatever the thing is, so
mhm,
that they could come together regularly and have accountability buddies and a space where people could check in on them and encourage them and support them. And that did quite well. And then you and I had a conversation probably back in March where both of us identified that we weren't quite at our target weight, to put it nicely,
Put it
and
mildly for me, yeah.
we wanted to see if we could do a specific kind of club for that. And so we came up with the notion of Light Club, and that started round about the end of March. And fast forward 4 months, you'd achieved your goals so well in that time that you've now kind of stepped back and you're taking that time back for yourself to do other things, which is fabulous. And for me, it's meant that all the things that and I've got strong, for those who understand it, strong Virgo in my chart, which means that health for me is a huge focus and that trying to be my best version of myself is important. So there were loads of things I wanted to do, but I wasn't being particularly consistent at.
Mm,
And I knew that if I had this regular group
mm,
to check in with, that I had a better chance of keeping up with those goals. So since then, I wasn't particularly mobile. I started doing 4,500 steps a day. That then went up to 10,000 steps a day. I've been rebounding several times a day, which is
yeah,
something I really wanted to get back into to get my lymph
yeah,
flowing. And
yeah.
I've been eating well consistently, cut back on the carbs that crept in over Christmas and, some of the junk food that had sort of sneaked its way back in, making sure I'm getting the right kind of light throughout the day, grounding, getting the right sleep, and all of those things were things I wanted to build in gradually. And because of this little group where we check in every Monday morning and we have a little chat group where we talk to each other and encourage each other, there's only 8 of us. I've been able to stay consistent with all those things and build upon them.
Mm.
And I've started lymphatic draining massage for the last 3 days as well, and I'm keeping up with that. So it's just been what the kids call habit stacking has become possible for me because I've got a group of people who care to check in and ask me how I'm doing, and I get to tell them about my progress and I get to encourage them and support them. And it's just priceless to see how all of us are steadily moving towards achieving our goals just because of that little container and that support.
Yeah,
So that's the value of community, and that's why I love what we do.
yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's not just about weight because there are
Mm.
so many, apart from what you eat and put in your mouth, this group is showing us all the different ways that contribute to us being able to lose weight.
And be healthy, which is the
Yeah.
bigger goal, really, wasn't it?
And there are areas where you wouldn't have thought might help.
That's right. And of
But
course, there's the
natural
whole,
daylight actually can help, and
yeah,
watching your circadian rhythm and all that sort of thing. But
yeah,
I'm sure we'll have a
being
talk on
consistent
that
with
at some
sleep. I'm
stage
sure we'll go into
because you've
deeper.
got lots of people lined up, haven't you, to give us very, very interesting talks about all aspects of health, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
there's the whole non-physical picture, isn't there? So
yeah,
it's what we're
absolutely.
carrying emotionally we haven't dealt with can often
No,
contribute towards carrying excess weight physically. And in
exactly.
our little group, we explore all of that. And it's been immensely helpful for me. And I've lost about a
Mm,
stone, I think, in that
mm.
time. Although I'm not weighing myself, just judging by my
No, but
clothes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very happy.
Lovely. Well, I mean that brings me to the last question, really, which is, can you share what you feel comfortable to share about your personal faith and how it supports and sustains your well-being?
Thank you. I mentioned earlier that I was raised in the Catholic faith, and although I stepped away from that, my sense of faith, my sense of being connected to something bigger has always been there. I say always been there, but it's been a huge resource and support for me and has helped me to understand and explain some of the more difficult things that have happened to me. I've had a couple of what I would call dark night of the soul situations where I've lost that faith temporarily, and those have been the hardest times of my life, where I've actually felt abandoned or forsaken, or that I was mistaken, that there wasn't that support there. And then each time when I found my way back, it's been like the most beautiful reconnection and relief. Um, and now it's not any specific faith that I follow, it's just an internal conversation that I have. And then reading the signals that are coming back to me and listening to the information that comes to me through, connected loved ones and through nature, which is kind of the shamanic way, is to tune into the information that's coming to you from all those channels to receive it as divine guidance and support. So that's how I live now. And I look back over my life and I see so many things where so many points where I was guided and so many points where there was what felt like divine synchronicity. And I realized that I didn't complete the point about dad, so I'll get to that just super quickly. But that's one of them where dad had said to me, don't study formal psychology, but just study the way that you're drawn to study and experience life the way you're guided to, and then set up a practice at 40 doing it your way. Well, I was 39 when I took up the practice in
Mm,
Salisbury, and I had a bookcase which you can't see over here, and I was filling it with my dad's books. And suddenly those words came back to me. For the first time in
mm,
years, I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't let that guide me,
mm.
particularly consciously, but there I was, nearly 40, setting up my own practice, doing it my way, having been drawn to the study that I was drawn to, which was
Yeah,
unconventional and unorthodox, but was what was right for me. And
exactly.
I managed to successfully help people doing it that way. So yeah, so the faith underpins everything for me, really. I don't do a single consultation without asking to be guided for that person's highest good. Um, and I believe that I'm a channel for whatever the creator wants to do through me. And yeah, it's a huge
Mm,
comfort to me. So yeah, it
mm.
means the world.
That's
Hopefully I answered
lovely.
that question properly.
Oh, you
Yeah.
put it very nicely. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, I think that draws us to an end of this lovely chat. Thank you so much, Maggie.
Thank you for
And
being a wonderful interviewer,
not at all.
making me feel comfortable when I get so nervous doing this sort of thing. Thank you.
And well, just all remains to say is whoever's watching this, thank you for watching. And we look forward to seeing you again very, very soon, as we have quite a lot of plans to bring to you.
Yes, we do. And next will be hopefully you seeing me interview Serena, so she'll be on the other foot. She'll probably do a much better job than I did.
No
But thank
chance.
you so much. And yeah, if any of this appeals to you, if we us nutters feel like the kind of people you'd like to hang out with, then come and find
Come
us.
on down.
Come and join us and have some fun. And
Yeah,
thank you very much, Serena.
not at all. Thank you, darling.
Take
Okay.
care.